Welcome back, YouTubers. Rigor here from Rigor's Garage in Boat Basin. Today we're going to work on the 1987 Wellcraft 27. Got a gauge on the dash that's got a problem. We're going to try and fix that and see if we can make it work. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Well, as you can see, we're up at the boat basin today. Sorry about the picture, what I'm taking here. My old phone now sleeps with the fishes, so I've got this different phone. Okay, what I've got here is this gauge. This does the air-fuel mixture for the motor. It monitors it, and it keeps on coming up with an error. And everything I've done, I've tried everything except replacing the gauge. I think the gauge is bad. So that's what we're going to do today. This is the sender right here. This is basically a wideband O2 sensor tied into the header, and it goes back to the front of the boat through this cable. Turns out I need to pull this cable out because the new O2 sensor is got a different cable connection from the old one. So I've got to remove 18 feet of cable through the edge of the boat and replace this O2 sensor. Now here's the new one. It comes with, of course, instructions. I'll probably get around to reading that after I put it in. New 18-foot cable to go through the gunnel of the boat. It comes with a new wideband O2 sensor that goes in the header. There's a cable with two different ends. This is the gauge end, and this is the cable end. And so this is the short one that goes between the cable to the back of the boat and the gauge. And here's the new air-fuel mixture gauge. And it's basically got, this is the plug that goes to the O2 sensor, and these are the ones that are wired into ground, +5, and of course lighting, you know, the lighting in the boat, that sort of thing. And also comes with, I don't need this. This is a weld-in bung for the headers. Headers come with a bung. They let you change the faceplate color from black to white and from black to silver bezel. Don't want that. And then it comes with the handy dandy bumper sticker. I don't think I'm going to use that either. Okay, that's where we're at. Okay, I've put the new O2 sensor in. Not much, just like one on a car. You unscrew one and you put the next one in. However, the interesting thing here is this is the new connector for the O2 sensor, and this is the old one. If you notice, they are totally different sizes and configuration. I have no idea, but because of this, I've got to replace all of the cabling right up to the gauge to use the new O2 sensor. Now I've taken out the panel for the boat. This is the dash panel, and here's the offending old gauge. Basically, I've got to take and and undo the wiring and put the new gauge in. I'm probably not going to show that because anything that has to do with wiring and cables just has too much profanity to put on YouTube. So I'll bring you back when I get the new gauge wired in, but basically it's a couple of connectors here and some wires that basically tie in to provide power to the gauge. Okay, here's the new gauge in. These wires, not used. They're used for data recording. You put a little module in and you can record data. That's for racing. Of course, here are the wires for power. And the interesting thing is the new gauge plugs right into the old cable. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever pulled cables through the boat. Kind of my thought is right now I'd be better off cutting off this connector right here, and since there's only 5 wires, I'll take and splice the wires is what I'm thinking of. But of course, through careful planning, I have neglected to bring up the things that I need to splice the wires. Like here's the red, white, and black wires that I need to splice, and I have strategically left my splicing equipment at home. So, plan 2, we're going to continue on another day. Okay, I'm working on this cable for the Wellcraft. This is for the fuel mixture sensor and gauge. This is the cable, and what I was looking at was what to do with the end, and I'm going to take and splice it. Now, as you recall, the little end right here is the gauge end, and this end is the sensor end. What I've done, I made a little chart here. What I did was pin out the cable end to end from each connector on each end, and then I cut the cable, and this is the end. What we've got is a series of wires. We've got a red and blue. There's 2 wires here. Then there are some pairs. There's yellow brown right here and yellow black. Then now these 2 pairs of wires are shielded with this piece of tinfoil. Then there's a ground wire. This right here is normally called, it's a uninsulated copper wire, normally called a drain wire. This and the shield are not connected at the sensor end. So if you take these 2 and put them together and go to one of the pins basically on this side, you will not find a connection. So with this, what I'll do is I'll take and scan this and put this in, so you'll have what the wire pinouts are. What I've got to do now is take and put some connectors. I'm trying to see if I can use clip-on splices. These are rather fine wires. These aren't so bad. These are like a 16. The red and blue are a 16 and 18 gauge. These are more like a 20 or a 22 gauge, so they're rather fine wires. I'm thinking of using the small uninsulated crimp-ons, and then what I'll do is I will take and put heat shrink over each one of the connectors. I'm going to work on this further, and not much exciting about wiring. But I'll get back to you. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm putting these little connectors on the cable to splice it. They're basically crimp-ons. Use the crimp-on tool here. I use the one with the smallest space to crimp it on. You can see the larger wires crimped on. Now the smaller ones, I tried crimping them on, but it wouldn't work because the copper wires, the small copper wires, would just flatten out and they'd pull right out. So what I've done is I've tinned them with some solder using the soldering iron here. And what I do is I crimp them on, and then I heat them up, and right in the end put a little dab of solder. So let me do one of these and show you how I'm doing it. So what I do is I put this in the crimping tool close to the end, and then I grab one of these small wires and I slide it in, leaving about a 1/16 of an inch of the tinned wire, and then I crimp it down. So with that completed, I'm going to take and I put it next to the soldering iron, get the connector heated, and then put a dab of solder right here in the very end, and basically solder the connector to the wire. Even though it's a crimp-on, it'll hold it on. So like I say, the process is a little hot. Take this, put it in the crimper, and I've already got a tinned wire here. Taken, crimp it on the wire, hold it against the soldering iron, and then melt the solder onto the wire. And that's basically that. Next thing is putting some heat shrink on the wires. Okay, I've got the pigtail ready to go to the boat. I've got a piece of heat shrink here over the cable, and then over each one of the individual wires I put a piece of heat shrink here. Now what I need to do is do the same for the cable in the boat after I cut it off. That's the next step. So I'm sitting in the truck here, taking a break from working in the sun on the cabling, and while I'm here, I figure I'd read an email from one of my followers, from Ken in Wyoming. He says, Rigor, enjoy following all of your little projects and the things you're getting done. While I was sitting here, something unusual happened to me. I saw a fellow walking down the street with a leash and a clam on it. What do you think I should do? Well, Ken, the only thing I can suggest is don't be shellfish. Go over and help him. He's obviously walking with a pulled muscle. Okay, so much for Ken in Wyoming. It's probably time to get back to working on the wiring in the boat. So what I've done is I connected the wires in the dash. 3 wires, a red, white, and a black. Yellow's not used, and at least in my application, the yellow's not used. And I connected together them with the same little splices that I had on the cable pigtail. I basically tinned the wires, bent them over, tinned them with a little bit of solder, put them in the little connectors, and put heat shrink over them. Then I went through the dash and secured everything with a series of tie wraps into the bundle across the top of the gauges. Now you see I've put the dash back in, and it's all back together. Now the pigtail, I put the pigtail on, did the same thing with the cable in the boat, cut the end off, and tinned the wires, and just basically put the heat shrink over it, and away it goes. Sensor's plugged in. Okay, this pretty much ends up our video on the mixture gauge. I've spliced the wires together on the pigtail. Basically, I did cut the end off the cable, and as I showed you, I spliced it, plugged it in. I've got to wait till I can start the engine before I can really test out the gauge. Before I can do that, I need to change the oil and the filter and do some remedial maintenance on the engine, put the drain plugs back in it, things like that. So it'll have to wait for another video. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.